Bam! Summer Part 2, the sequel, Revenge of the Sun. Yeah, I don't know why it surprises us, but it happens every year. Mid-October rolls around, we get a nice heat wave coming in, so do yourself a favor, put down the pumpkin spice, 86 the Ugg boots. We got another beach weekend coming up. Good morning, Santa Clarita. Welcome in. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. I am Matt Watson, and this is SCVi and iLEAD School's Eye on the Valley. You know the show, Eye on the Valley. It is brought to you by SCVi and iLEAD Charter Schools. We're a network of charter schools. Remember, friends, charter means free. We're a network of charter schools with campuses in Castaic, Agua Dulce, Lancaster. We've got a fully accredited online school. That's right. It is TK through 12th grade online. Yes, your kids can do it. It's an amazing program. We've also got a burgeoning home study program called iLEAD Exploration. Incredibly supportive home study program. You know what? Just head on over to ileadschools.org for more information on our home study, our online school, our campus-based schools. We've got an educational format that will meet the needs of your kids no matter what they're doing. Again, ileadschools.org for more information on any of our schools. So yeah, we have our eye on education here in Santa Clarita and across the nation. But like the show says, we keep our eye on the valley as well, bringing you everything that you need to know about what's what right here in the valley, and we do so while trying to bring a smile to your face, because you know what, you're not going to stick around if you're not having a good time. So we try to help you have a good time, slide into that weekend with a little smile on your face, because you know what, no matter what you're doing this weekend, if you're not giggling a little bit, you're doing it wrong. Unless you're going to a funeral, right? Just try not to giggle at the funerals. But although you know what, some of the best funerals I feel like have some nice memories and some chuckles. But anyways, I digress. It is an amazing day here on Eye in the Valley. We've got a fantastic show. I got a couple of just incredible guests coming up in just a minute. We're going to talk to y'all know how important STEM education is, right? You know, parents have gotten really savvy these days, and as they're looking for schools, they're like, all right, where can my kid get a good STEM education? The future's in STEM. My kid needs to really know his STEM stuff. And we have got a couple of STEM educators and experts that are they're doing it better than anybody out there. I'm talking about Kathleen Fredette and Shawna Melville. The stuff that they're doing with kids of all ages at SCVi and the rest of our iLEAD schools is absolutely phenomenal. You'll meet them here in just a second. And then in hour number 2, we've got another impressive guest. We've got the president and CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Greater Los Angeles, Aaron Rank. They're doing great things to ensure that every person in LA County has a decent place to live. And then, of course, as always, we've got Big T coming at you at the end of the show with good times in trivia. So, you know, Engineer Jen almost took me last week. Man, she's really finding her stride at trivia. So maybe today is her day. Who knows? Engineer Andrew's shaking his head. Engineer Andrews is scared of Jen, and she is something to fear when it comes to trivia. So find out coming up if today is her day, or if Engineer Andrew is going to break this slump that he's in. So find out again later on in the show here on Eye on the Valley. But first, my guests this morning, as I said, are two of the most talented names in STEM education and project-based learning. Kathleen Fredette is the director of STEAM initiatives. That's STEM plus art, STEAM initiatives with iLEAD schools. She's spent most of her career on the forefront of the fields of science and engineering and education. She's an airborne astronomy ambassador for NASA Sophia, a NASA Endeavor Leadership Distinction Award recipient, a Woman in Aerospace National Award recipient, a Space Foundation teacher liaison, and a whole lot more. What greater pedigree can you ask for that? And she is complemented by the most amazing colleague, Shawna Melville. Shawna's a graduate of Adolfo Camarillo High School. Go Scorps! And she has a degree in chemistry from Cal State Channel Islands. She currently lives in Camarillo and is a project-based learning veteran who specializes in delivering incredibly rigorous projects that engage students in projects that take them into the real world while having an incredible amount of fun and learning all those state standards that Sacramento says they got to learn in order to prepare them for success in the 21st century. Kathleen, Shawna, welcome to Eye on the Valley.
Hey, we're so happy to be here. It's good to see you, Matt.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. So, I tell you what, you both have these really cool titles. Director of STEAM Initiatives, and STEM specialist. So tell us a little bit about what your role is. What's your day to day? Because I think the two of you have kind of two of the more unique and I got to be honest, coolest roles at our schools. So Kathleen, why don't we start with you? What's your role with iLEAD?
So you're right. I think I say to myself on a regular basis, I love my job. I have the funnest, and I'll use that word because now it's actually correct. You can say funnest.
If
and
you
I will
use a
say
word
it.
often enough, it will become a word.
I will say that now. So it is one of the funnest jobs in the entire world. And so what does my day look like? There's some days where we are creating new opportunities, educational opportunities for kids to get out there and do real stuff in the realm specifically of science and aerospace tends to be our focus. And then going in and working with facilitators or teachers to help them to roll out or implement those projects in the classroom. And so getting to go into the classroom too and be with kids is awesome to me since I used to be in the classroom, and it's one of my favorite things. I get to do it today. So there's that, writing and implementing. And then, we're in the back. We call ourselves mission control because we're in the back, like moving all the dials to help kids get stuff up to space. There's a whole bunch of back end stuff you got to do to actually have that happen. And also we get kids up flying and becoming pilots. And so those are just two of the projects. That's just a little bit of it.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a lot of the different projects that you and Shawna are running. Shawna, you, as I said in your intro, you really complement Kathleen, and the two of you work as an amazing team. Tell us a little bit about what your role is with the different STEM projects at iLEAD schools.
Yeah, Matt, just yesterday we were in a meeting talking about the dynamic between Kathleen and I, and it really is something special. I think Kathleen is really the genius behind a lot of the authentic, beautiful opportunities and project-based learning experiences our kids get. And then I think where I come in and complement is kind of systematizing, running things on the back end, making sure everything is administratively set to go. I do a lot of virtual support for our online and homeschool programs. So yeah, we run parallel, but just in different ways. I tend to handle more of the remote aspects of our projects and just make sure everything is systematized because our project suite of aerospace and STEAM projects has really grown over the last couple of years. And, our job is just to make those projects as simple as possible for facilitators to roll out and make sure that they can put a spin on it and use it to their benefit and to help their learners succeed and get some really cool STEAM opportunities in their classroom.
What beautiful synergy between the two of you. And you talked about the STEAM possibilities that y'all kind of set up. And I love that analogy of mission control. You're back there kind of working the back end stuff that helps set the stage for facilitators. That's what we call our teachers, because just like you're facilitating amazing experiences in the classroom, they're facilitating incredible curriculum for our kids. But it's our kids that really hold the education in their hands. So let's talk about some of those programs. What are some of the different programs? You mentioned, kids are sending experiments to space. They're starting their journey in piloting, but you do so much more. Can you just kind of touch on, and we'll go deeper later on, but what are some of the projects that you support?
So we have Dream Up to Space, kids sending, like you just said. We have a soaring aeronautics. We've done that all the way down to TK, so little kids, all the way down up into high school, have been involved in different aviation-related projects with a different emphasis like hot air balloon and rocketry. We have a project called Bioinspiration that really looks at who are the disruptors in the world, who are making a difference in using biology to be inspired to create new innovation. We have a new project that we've run twice called the Mycology Project, and this is for that word, if you don't know that word. Mycology is the study of fungi or mushroom.
Had a nice cream of mushroom last night. Yeah.
Okay, well now you know to call it cream of mycology.
There
right?
we go.
So in that project, kids are looking at what are the challenge we face as humanity? And through the lens of mycology, how could we address those? So it turns out, and boy, we've learned a lot building this project. It turns out that mushrooms are really amazing for medicinal, textiles, building materials, as
Yeah.
well as the environment. And so that's a new project. Shawna, why don't you talk about mini PCR and any one
Mhm.
other that I didn't hit?
Yeah. So I'll talk about Mini PCR and then rocketry. So Mini PCR is a company that we've partnered with, and they bring molecular biology technology, things that I was doing in a college lab, right, that were state of the art, brand new, like a PCR machine. They bring these molecular biology technologies right into the classroom and gets it into the hands of learners in a very accessible way. And it kind of breaks the stigma that only a certain high tier, highly educated group of people can be molecular biologists, because it really couldn't be any simpler with the technology we have. So there are CSI, DNA investigations that we can run. We can do COVID analysis and just all of these beautiful molecular biology labs. So we are able to support that in our classrooms. And then another project that we run is rocketry, where we can really differentiate up into high school or down into the lower elementary grades, and get kids building rockets. And there are tons of different progressive models that you can build in rocketry, from simple bottle rockets all the way up to foam rockets and Estes rockets. You can get really sophisticated, but we just introduced that concept of rocketry in the classroom. Kids really light up about that one.
So cool, Shawna. And you talk about the deep, rigorous levels of learning that the kids are doing, and they're doing it through things that are obviously fun, engaging, exciting, and relevant, right? Just to touch on one that you mentioned, that using the PCR to do COVID analysis and things like that. And that's what the beauty of project-based learning is, right? Is making the learning real, relevant, exciting, something that kids aren't gonna pass the test and lose out of their brain the next day, right?
Right. And so the content is rigorous. That is
Yeah.
a requirement. However, when you give a kid a reason to go into rigorous content
Right.
and help them get their own ideas about curiosity and what they want to understand. And in all of our projects also, we're just trying to broaden their horizon. Because if you ask a regular kid, like, what do you want to be? Like, that is a kind of a non-starter. Or what's your passion? That's kind of a non-starter question. So instead, because they might go, well, I like games. I like gaming. And because they don't know what they don't know. So if you can pull back, open up all these other ideas to them, then they can go, oh, wow, maybe I want to be a molecular biologist like Shawna, or maybe I want to be a pilot. Like, I never knew what I didn't know. I didn't ever want to be a pilot at that age.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to be that pilot when I was an adult. And so,
And that it's so amazing, man. And I'm reflecting on it now. It's been over 20 years that I, as an educator, have been going into classrooms and talking to kids about what they're learning. And one of the questions I always like to ask is, why are you learning that? Because if the kids don't have a why, then it's not going to stick. And for years, when I was working in one of the traditional schools, I would constantly hear the answer either because my teacher told me to, or so I can pass the test, or so I can get a good grade, go to college. Getting good grades, going to college is a good thing, but that's not a real why for our learning. When we go into classrooms and ask kids why they're doing the stuff that they're doing with you, is why are you doing this? So I can get my pilot's license, so we can colonize the moon and Mars. That's some serious why. Now, and I love what you're doing with your aeronautics projects. By the way, had dinner actually with a group of folks last night, 4 of whom are pilots. Actually, 2 of them are retired, 2 of them are about to retire, and I was talking about some of the projects you're doing.
cool.
This is a monkey I'm going to take, Kath. They suggested we start getting in touch with some of the airlines and different industries, because, as you know, there's a lot of the kind of the old guard that were trained during the Vietnam era that are retiring, and they're seeing a huge dearth in the area of aeronautics. We've got different kinds of programs that are preparing the future generations of pilots. We need to get connected. So let's talk about one of the projects that you're doing to help prepare our kids. I'm talking about the Soaring Aeronautics Project right now with our iLEAD Lancaster campus, right? Can you tell our listeners, you mentioned a little bit, tell our listeners a little bit more detail about the Soaring Aeronautics Project.
Okay, so in that project, state mandated, we're going to have to talk in 8th grade about intro to physics. We're going to have to talk about Newton's laws and that sort of thing. So our driving question is like going to be a little bit broader because we use aircraft that don't have engines. We use gliders in this project. And so our driving question is how can you soar up in all areas of your life? So we're going to talk about in the science realm, the physics, like the question, how do things fly? There's so much magic. Like we can explain it in 5 different ways, but the closer I get to true aeronautic scientists, like they'll be like, no, there's magic. There's some magic going on. So through that project, kids are learning about aircraft. They're learning the parts of a glider. They're having builds. They're building models. They're flying. They're taking data. They're understanding. They're on how to operate a glider. They're on simulators. And then next week, we're bringing from Edwards Air Force Base. They come out and bring a full-scale glider and their crew, and the kids interact around the glider. And then they fly. So we got them flying up at Tehachapi's Skylark North, one of our partners, on November 18th. So any kid that wants to take a first flight with a certified flight instructor in the back, they're in the front, and they'll be asked, do you want to take the controls? And we're now where we're at in this project, most of the kids want to take the controls, and then their faces when they get out of that glider. And then when they say, I want to do this. Yeah. Now we have now what are you going to do if you say that, right? And so that's been pretty fun. It's super fun for me as a pilot to be part of helping this industry because like you said, there's a dearth.
Yeah, that's so exciting, and I love that driving question. How can you soar up in all areas of your life? Because not everybody in our 8th grade class is going to be a pilot or get super excited about that. They might want to be a poet, but there's still that connection there. You're learning this deep, rigorous stuff. You're learning to analyze. You're learning to think, and you're learning to soar up, level up in every area of your life. Kathleen Fredette is the director of STEAM initiatives. Shawna Melville is the STEAM project specialist, both with iLEAD California. When we get back, we'll have even more of some of the amazing projects that this team is facilitating for the learners at iLEAD schools. Again, a network of free public charter schools that your kids can attend. I guarantee it. You might think, Matt, I don't live in Santa Cruz. You don't have to. We'll give you more information about these projects and about how you can enroll right after this. I'm Matt Watson, and you're listening to SCVi and iLEAD Schools Eye on the Valley on your hometown station, KHTS. Welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is Matt Watson, and you're listening to SCVi and iLEAD Schools Eye on the Valley. We're talking this morning with Kathleen Fredette and Shawna Melville, the director of STEAM initiatives and the STEAM project specialist, respectively, for iLEAD California charter schools. Before the break, we were talking about some incredible projects that they're running with the students at iLEAD schools. We're talking about SCVi, iLEAD Lancaster, iLEAD Agua Dulce, iLEAD Exploration, our home study program, all of our iLEAD schools, really. And we'll dip more into that and what they're doing and how they're doing it. But before the break, we were talking about this Soaring Aeronautics project that you're running currently with the 8th graders at iLEAD Lancaster, but you've done it with the 8th graders across our charter school network. Is this something that kids opt into? Do all of the 8th graders at iLEAD schools have the opportunity to pilot these? Well, you call them gliders, and it's so funny. When you first showed up talking about gliders at our school, I thought, okay, cool, balsa wood, and we're going to be learning to. But these are they're airplanes, functioning airplanes. The only difference between the airplanes that your kids are flying and the airplane I flew in a couple days ago is the one I flew in had an engine, and these ones don't. Explain that a little bit more. And do all of the 8th graders fly these planes?
Okay, so a glider is an aircraft without an engine, like you just said, and it gets a tow up by a plane that has an engine up until whatever altitude you want, and then releases. And then a glider pilot plays with air, and our goal is to go find rising air. And in the Air Force Academy, all the pilots start in gliders, and here's the reason why.
Wow.
When you fly a glider, you really know how to fly. And someone told me one time, in fact, it was Major General John Barry, said, other pilots are afraid of you. And I'm like, me, what? And he said, yeah, because if our engine goes out, even though we learn how to land, we're like, pooping it in our pants, right? And so I shouldn't have said that. I am so sorry.
It's a family show, Kath.
Okay, there we go. So do all of our kids in 8th grade fly? No, some don't, but we always make sure that everyone has the opportunity to do that. And they earn that opportunity by really doing rigorous, beautiful work throughout the project that we guide them through. And they also get to take their own spin on it. And there's a place where they get to take the information they learned and apply it in any way that makes sense to them. So we call that an exploration. And so could it be something related to flying? It could be fashion and flying. It could be truly anything that is connected to flight that they would like to. It could be art. It could be poetry. It could be anything. The final thing I'll say, or maybe Shawna, you can talk about this, because I don't know, Matt, I think you know this. One of our schools in Antelope Valley ran this project TK through 8. Shawna, why don't you talk? Do you mind me asking Shawna?
No, that's great. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so just last year, iLEAD Antelope Valley Studio ran the Soaring Aeronautics project TK all the way through 8th. Their school leader said, Kathleen and Shawna, I know that this is an 8th grade project, but I want more. And she was able to transform the entire school site into an aviation wonderland. And so what we did was we took the Soaring Aeronautics project and we had every grade level focus on a different aircraft or different element of flight, and customized a project specifically to their NGSS needs, started with those standards, and then created something really inspiring at every level. It was truly, truly magical. And of course, the 8th graders focused on glider and ended up going up in their glider shortly after.
That is fantastic. And geographically, our schools are situated in the perfect area. You talk about running this, kind of preparing the future of not only pilots, but airplane mechanics, space technicians and scientists, up in the Antelope Valley, which of course grew up out of flight and aerospace. And here in Santa Clarita, we've got over 50 aerospace businesses right here in the Valencia Industrial Center. So just preparing kids for the future of what our communities are.
But Matt, the truth is that, and I live in the Antelope Valley, is that there's like an interesting population there where you have a lot of folks in aerospace. You have Skunk Works, Northrop Grumman, you have everything there, right? But at the same time, you have kids who have never, frankly, been to the beach. Right. And they have no clue about what's happening in the Antelope Valley. So in this particular school, my hair and my eyebrows were blown back by what happened at that school. My heart was just melted. And I realized, oh, wow, even I have been like putting some stops or some like, oh, no, this project won't go down that far. And what was really beautiful is the amount of community members that came over to that site, worked with the kids in all kinds of different variety of levels. And that is what it's about. Like now a kid has access to something that they never had access to before. And that's an idea, an exposure. That to me is brilliant.
It really is beautiful. And again, it's preparing kids for that unknown future. We kind of have a vague idea of what's coming, but just preparing them with the skills that they're going to need in their time and place. And that's what iLEAD is all about. But one of the things that I know that you and Shawna constantly have to kind of hitch your anchor to is those state standards, right? Because it's all fine and good if we're doing these really exciting projects and the kids are super engaged, but if they're not learning the things that they're supposed to learn at the right grade level, then oftentimes our schools can get dinged, and we're preparing kids for the future, but we're about to get shut down. So how do you and Shawna ensure that the state standards, the things kids are supposed to learn, are still incorporated in all these different projects?
Shawna, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so I actually think we're a little bit lucky here. In science, we use NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards, and I'd say that this set of standards is probably one of the most sophisticated set of learning standards that we've seen in education in the United States. It covers what you need to learn, it covers why you need to learn it, and it covers why it is important in the science field in a very real way. So oftentimes kids love science, right? They love the what of science, but then they get into a college setting or something more rigorous, and there are skills within the scientific field that they just were never exposed to, like true science, investigation, observation, data collection, these critical skills that were kind of left out of the picture, right? Because when I was going through school, it was a set of vocabulary words. If you were really good at vocabulary, you were really great at science. And so the NGSS has great potential to be very inspiring, authentic, and relevant.
Yeah.
However, it's upon the educator, and in Kathleen and I's role, that educational science support, it's within that group of people to take a science experience to the next level, because you can have the NGSS lend itself to a worksheet and a packet, right? But at iLEAD and within Kath and I's team, we strive for something more inspiring, something more authentic, hands-on, competition-based, opportunity-based, design challenge, right? Like, let's get these kids excited and hit these standards far harder than a learner could ever get in a packet or a worksheet. But it does start with that NGSS, which, you know, they're really beautifully written. So, you know, compared to other standard sets, I find that we're pretty lucky.
And it's their experiences that are going to stick with the kids. Shawna, you touched on something that really excites me, design challenge. And you've got one coming up here. In fact, Kathleen, I think you're about to launch a design challenge, but and you know, I think most of our listeners know what a design challenge is, but this one is, oh my gosh, design challenge, so much more. I'm talking about the Space Accelerator project that you're about to launch at SCVi this morning. Can you tell us about Space Accelerator? It sounds like something that they used to do from Star Trek, right? We're jumping into light speed, or are we beaming somebody down to a different planet? What's the Space Accelerator?
Okay, so accelerator in this case, and kids are going to start with that. They're going to think it has something to do with speed. An accelerator actually is what we use in business to jumpstart a company. So this project is rooted in entrepreneurialism and space colonization.
Wow.
And the innovations that will be needed to colonize the moon and Mars. So the kids are going to understand about astronomy. They're going to look at habitable planets. They're going to be looking at the missions that are currently happening, Artemis, and what's going to be happening to go to Mars. They're going to look at not only national space companies like NASA. It's not a company, it's an organization.
Right.
But we're also going to look at privatized space. So it turns out that now a lot of the work that's moving forward, like SpaceX, has moved to privatized space. So they're then going to think about what would they want if they were on the moon or Mars, and they're going to join together as little teams, and not little, in teams. They're going to create a company, create a product, create a logo, do the whole financials for it, and then they have to pitch it to a Shark Tank. So it's exciting because entrepreneurialism is part of who we are at iLEAD.
Yep.
And we're actually going to do this in a real authentic way and have this competition. So they'll present to each other, and then there'll be further competitions moving forward.
Okay, and you've worked in a project very similar to this in the past. So talk to us about some of the types of things that kids might develop as a result of this project.
Okay, I can remember a kid had an idea of a device that a person would wear that would take readings on their chemical levels of anxiety.
Oh, wow.
And then it would give them, they would wear a device that would give them an alert to do some meditation or yoga, because one of the things the in this project, we'll start with what are the hazards of long-term space travel. And so they'll get very clear. This is what we already know from the work we've done on ISS and the work we've done, that these are the hazards to humans. And so how are we going to combat those? That was one of them. There was another one that was really cool. It was like this little device that if you were on a moonwalk or a Mars walk, you would wear it on your back. And it was a stretcher so that if something happened to you, to your compadre while you're walking around, it would like pop out and then you could have a way to bring them back to base.
Oh, cool.
So there was just so many fun ideas. Some of them were whimsical and some of them were actually really beautiful.
Wow. So this sounds like one of those really high-level projects. Shawna mentioned with the soaring project, you guys were able to dip down all the way down to TK. Is this something that you're involving the littles with as well, or is this more of a high school level project? What grade levels?
Actually, this one is at 8th again right now.
Okay, just 8th
But
grade.
it
Okay.
could, when we write our projects, we write them at about a middle school level, knowing that they could go down or they could go up. And that's one of the things we've gotten, Shawna can talk about this too, is at that same school that we did the all aviation project, we also did an all space project. And that school was spacified for 6 to 8 weeks. And we went down to TK. And that was shockingly amazing to me as an educator to watch that happen. And so we had things, again, standard space that were happening connected to space at every single grade level.
Wow. So we've talked about the principles of flight and how you're literally teaching kids to fly, and they're doing some of their ground school work at our, again, free public charter schools. This isn't, a high dollar private school. Anybody in pretty much Southern California that attends our schools can engage in these projects. You're having kids innovate so that humankind is ready to explore the colonization of the moon and Mars and beyond. You talked about how they're working with DNA and the mini PCR projects. You're doing a lot of stuff. When we come back from the break, I want to talk about a project that I actually got to witness. I kind of shoved myself in there to watch your kids at work a couple of weeks ago, and that's the Dream Up to Space project. Different than what you're doing with the Space Accelerator. Let's take a quick break so that when we come back, we can kind of spread out and talk about Dream Up to Space. Kathleen Fredette and Shawna Melville are the STEAM team with iLEAD schools, and they're preparing just these amazingly innovative and rigorous projects for your kids, our kids, anybody's kids who attend iLEAD schools. Stay tuned. I'm Matt Watson. You're listening to SCVi and iLEAD Schools Eye in the Valley. We'll be right back on your hometown station, KHTS. Welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is Matt Watson, your host, and you're listening to SCVi and iLEAD Schools Eye on the Valley. We're talking this morning with Kathleen Fredette and Shawna Melville, and the two of them, I mentioned as we were cutting out for the last break, that they are the STEAM team, and they really are two amazing educators that are putting together STEM and STEAM projects for our learners at iLEAD schools. Again, iLEAD is a network of charter schools, TK through 12th grade, with an educational format to meet whatever your needs are. Need an online school? We've got it. Need a home study program? We've got it. Need a classroom-based full Monday through Friday, 8 to 3? We've got that too. You need a hybrid, kind of a merger. We've got all that. And Kathleen and Shawna are preparing these absolutely incredible projects for our kids as they prepare to not succeed, but to lead into and beyond the 21st century. Kathleen, Shawna, we talked before about the mini PCR and the DNA projects that you're working on. We talked about the glider project that you've worked on, teaching kids not only the principles of flight, but teaching kids to fly. And there's been probably a dozen kids or more that have, through your projects, gotten their pilot's license, and some of them are flying professionally today. We talked about the Space Accelerator, where you're encouraging kids to innovate and actually invent products that are going to help us colonize and push into space, but also have an extremely relevant connection to life here earthbound. But I want to talk about one of the projects that really just knocks my socks off every time I talk about it, every time I think about it, because, schools are supposed to be a place where kids like learn about the cool things other people are doing, and maybe they can replicate some cool experiments that scientists have done in the past, or read about what NASA's doing to get us to the future. But Dream Up to Space is a project where our kids, as young as third graders, I think, and all the way through high school, have not watched, have not communicated with, but have become NASA scientists pushing the envelope of space exploration. Can you tell us about the Dream Up to Space project and just kind of give us an overview of what it is?
Well, go ahead, Sean.
Sounds good. Yeah. This is one of my favorite projects to talk about because, Matt, you're right. We try to get science in the hands of learners and we empower them to make those experimental decisions. Dream Up to Space is a project where we present a design challenge to a group of learners, whether that's 1 grade or TK through 12. We've ran this project at every level. Again, the school at iLEAD Antelope Valley Studio ran this TK through 8, and we were able to differentiate this opportunity all the way up, all the way down. And the principle of the project is to learn about components like the ISS, like experimental design, like scientific proposal writing and microgravity, right? Like, why do astronauts float? And taking a look and introducing space science to these learners with an exciting follow-up question, well, we have an opportunity for you. Mm-hmm. We can send a learner experiment to the International Space Station on a Falcon 9 rocket. So if you had the opportunity to send an experiment to space, what would you send and why? So they get to experience a lot of different curricular opportunities and then get to apply that knowledge through creating a proposal. That proposal goes, many proposals go before an assessor board, and the assessors that we're able to collaborate with, we are so thankful for them. They're industry leaders across aerospace and aviation to make sure that the selection is completely independent. And they select the proposal that's going to go up to the International Space Station, and we work with that team to prepare them. But that's the summary. There's many, many intricate pieces of the project, but essentially we're getting learner science up to the International Space Station, which has become such a normal at iLEAD. But Kathleen and I we really have to catch ourselves, right? Like, Kathleen has been running this project for, I think, close to a decade now. We're coming up here pretty close.
It has been close to a
and
decade.
I was able to join in maybe 4 years ago.
Wow.
But it really has become normalized, but every time we're able to see a rocket launch from Kennedy Space Center, it's really humbling, and we're really lucky to be able to run this project.
So cool. You talk about going to Kennedy Space Center and watching a 5th grader's experiment launch into space where NASA scientists are conducting it on the International Space Station. Your kids are learning astronomy, the scientific process, by way of what they're experimenting on. They're learning botany, horticulture, and then, like you said, Shawna, technical writing, speaking, formal presentations, and oh boy, grit, because I've seen as they take their proposals before your panel of experts. That panel of experts, boy, even though they're 2nd graders, 3rd graders, they don't take it easy on them. No, this isn't going to work. Do it again. And the kids are, like I said, you launch your homework into space, you're going to be highly motivated. So, Kathleen, we talked about it's been almost a decade. How have you seen this project morph over time? Talk about when this project started and how you've expanded it and grown it.
Thanks for that question. When we first started this project, we were using a beautiful other educational experience that we paid for, and we used their curriculum. And it was the hardest thing I'd ever done leading that, and no one liked it. It was really beautiful from the outside, like, woo, we got something to space.
Yeah.
And no kids' eyes were shining and no facilitators' eyes were shining. So what I meant, there was no inspiration in it, even though it was amazing.
Right.
And part of it was because it was written at such a technical level that it just really exhausted everyone's ability. Like, I loved that there was such rigor in it. We're going to teach them to write like microgravity scientists, but the truth is we're not, right? And so 2 years later, fast forward, we had the opportunity to partner with DreamUp, which is an educational arm of a company called NanoRacks. They're like the FedEx to space, and they integrate the payload and they give the astronaut all the interactions that they're going to do, right? And so we had the chance to create our own curriculum with the goal of, again, not everyone's going to become a scientist or everyone's going to be loving space, but we want to inspire everyone in some way.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do really cool things, and we're going to ask questions like Shawna said, why does an astronaut float? And most, like 98% of the population, we could ask the engineer right here, why does an astronaut float? And then we'll put her in a, like when she says,
That's easy because there's no gravity.
Correct, right? And all of us still believe that. And then we have to unwind that and actually model, right? See our engineer.
Right. I didn't expect to learn anything really in terms of science. You think, you learn it all when you're, fifth grade, like you mentioned, and you just file that away and go, okay, now I know that, but obviously not.
Right. And I had to unlearn that. Right. So we learned some things. So what I've recognized, a couple things, is that when we're doing rigorous things and real things, still inspiration for us is always going to be the forefront. Why? Well, because I want those eyes shining. I want those not only for the teachers, the facilitators, but the learners and any community members, right? And so we are really good at helping our kids. We require them to go get an expert. And here's the reason why. Shawna and I don't know the things about their ideas on their proposal. There's no way that we could be the holder of that wisdom. So we teach them how to go have conversations with experts. And I think that's an amazing thing that we've learned how to do really well. And then also we bring lots of experts into this project as mentors, and we kind of open ourselves up and say, ooh, how are we doing? Are we doing well here, or could we do it better? Yeah. And I think a lot of people in aviation, aerospace, they want to give back and they don't know how to give back. And I think that's another nut that we've cracked that I'm super proud of. The amount of real folks that are touching our kids. And, our kids have spoken at an ASGSR conference. That's a national space conference. Our kids have spoken at the Air and Space Museum. They've done post-flight analysis. That means when the experiment comes back, they look at what was in space, what happened on Earth. They've done that at NASA Glenn, NASA Ames. We've done that at UCLA. We're in with real people learning real stuff. And Shawna and I are always learning.
Yeah. We've got just a couple of seconds left, but I want to talk about how much it's grown. I remember that first year at 2015, 2016, took about a year and a half. You launched one project up in the space, huge crescendo. But this year, how many schools, how many projects are being launched?
Okay, so right now we're launching 7, which
7
angels, and that hopefully right now the launch is on November 5th. We'll see if it holds. It's already slipped. That's rocket science for moved. It's already slipped twice, and we'll see if it slips again.
Wow.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
Oh, thanks for coming in, Shawna. Thanks for calling. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time and everything you do for our kids. Again, for more information on these projects and all the great education that your child can get for free at a public charter school, go to iLEADschools.org. That's iLEADschools.org. Ladies, thank you so much. When we get back, we'll have the president and CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Greater Los Angeles, Aaron Rank. I'm Matt Watson. You're listening to SCVi and iLEAD Schools Eye on the Valley on your hometown station, KHTS. And welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. I am Matt Watson, your host, and you are listening to SCVi and iLEAD Schools Eye on the Valley. We're coming to you live from the center of Main Street here in beautiful downtown Newhall. I'm super fired up. I'm so excited. Last hour we talked to Kathleen, Fredette, and Shawna Melville from iLEAD Schools. They are, I referred to them as the STEAM team. They are developing STEAM or STEM projects and initiatives for our learners, literally TK through 12th grade. They've got our 4.5, 5-year-olds and our seniors in high school working on these amazing projects where, yes, they're learning about the principles of flight, but they're learning to fly, and they're sending experiments to space, and they're replicating DNA and genes and so much more. They're inventing products that'll eventually help our colonization of the moon and Mars. Such incredible projects. So exciting, rigorous, relevant, memorable experiences for our kids, all at a public charter school. Yeah, public. Did you know charter schools are free? And you don't have to live in a specific area to attend. Our schools are open to anybody in LA County, Kern County, San Bernardino County, Orange County, Ventura County. For more information on all the exciting things happening at our schools, visit iLeadschools.org. And